What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for October 14th, 2024. The CitizenCon schedule is here, and it is jam-packed. I tested 4.0 this week, and they patched every single day since the last episode. They're working really hard. All that and more on today's Week in Review. And as always, if this is your first week in review, this is where I take all of the official Star Citizen news each week, put it into one video, and share some of my opinions about it. I also live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/SaltEMike. Stop by and say hello. If you haven't yet, make extra sure you stop by and say hello this week, because we are going to be covering CitizenCon on twitch.tv/SaltEMike with Level Cap Gaming. If you want to watch on YouTube, though, you can also watch it on his channel on YouTube. We'll be simulcasting over there. We have so much to talk about this week, but before we do, let me share with you today's sponsor. Thank you to Boot.dev for sponsoring today's video. This one's for all you armchair developers in the comments. You yourself can become a back-end web developer using Boot.dev's innovative and really smart lessons towards your goals. You'll learn back-end web development programming languages like Python and Go, but what makes these lessons so different and cool is they use modern game design to create a self-paced but captivating RPG game that will teach you to code. But it's not just games. Their philosophy is to use those games to get you to write a ton of code, because they believe that getting your hands dirty and shipping projects is the only way to learn. On top of that, they have an active Discord community that will help you when you're stuck and even help prepare you for technical interviews that may be coming up. Boot.dev never wants their students to feel like they aren't getting value, so they offer a 30-day, no questions asked refund policy, as well as a free demo of every course in its interactive features. So click the link in the description and use code SaltEMike to get 25% off your first payment for Boot.dev. Once again, that's 25% off your first month or year, depending on which subscription you choose. Thanks as always for supporting me with the sponsors. It allows me to pay for my awesome editor Biggs, who kind of really took the show to the next level. But also, I just had my entire capture PC fail this week, or just last night, and I'm recording this on my gaming PC. I threw everything together and it's been a mess. So we got a lot to cover. I just want to appreciate you and thank you for that. And yeah, let's get into the patch notes. And we'll start out on Monday with the P8 AR mags. Were supposed to be in the shops, but it was confirmed broken. They just weren't. But something not in the notes that we discovered is that you can actually craft fuses now. It takes both RMC and construction materials, prep for engineering, I assume. The main highlight of the update was the Zeus variants being added. I like them visually. The internals in terms of how they look visually. But functionality, I'm not sure if I see these ships being my daily driver, especially not for cargo. Tuesday, they basically balanced all the size 1 quantum drives to be uniform, as well as the rest of the drives, right? We've been down this road before, and I will say this: I hope they do not let them sit and rot as they've done with nearly every other feature around flight until this game gets super stale. Specifically with weapons, they did it, right? And are still dealing with it. And yeah, so I just don't expect much. And speaking of that, they're nerfing cannons by lowering their regen rate and a bit of their ammo counts, I guess. And as well as other things like turret health is now going up, so they're balancing turrets to be a little bit more powerful. They also made the Karna a little bit more of a high skill weapon with increased recoil. I really struggled using this. Wednesday, 324.ptu. I don't know about this HUD polishing thing. It's readable sometimes, but not others. I think shields are pretty hard to see still, especially on bright backgrounds. But they did start to add new icons for things like quantum markers instead of very placeholder ones that we have been seeing, and I like them a lot. Thursday, we had a meshing test, and I think it actually went pretty well. The 1,000-player test was starting to feel like the 350-player test, but big change here is they showed how many players are in the actual shard versus how many are connected to your server. So I was able to see that, like, sometimes I was on a 5 FPS server, and it's because there were hundreds of players, because they were in a city, and I was on the city shard, right? And then I had 30 when there were 20 players, but then sometimes it was the opposite. So their load balancing is hard to figure out, and they need to figure that part out, I think. They did get confident and try a 2,000 player test. And as I entered the elevator, I had a family emergency, so I had to run, but it looked like I didn't miss much from there. So yeah, everyone said it was really rough, and I look forward to Benoit's breakdown of it. And actually, he made the breakdown for it. And I don't know if I have the the footage for you of it, but he basically said that it went pretty well, but there's a lot of things that they're unsure of why they happened, and they need to investigate why certain issues that we had were there. He also mentioned leaving 324 as the testing branch for it and moving it into 4.0, and we'll get to a little bit of that in just a second. They asked us to find server lines in the 800 player test, which was very stable, I would say. And, so now they wanted to try and find, it's basically a good middle ground in terms of balancing, I think. But they asked us to go to the server lines, and it was messy. We couldn't tractor beam anything over it, throwing things over the lines. It got messy. Sometimes you would see the item, sometimes you wouldn't, but we could damage each other across the lines, both in ships and in FPS, so that was interesting. We had to be at the pole of the moon, though, as the gravity issue from April is still there. But each time I come out feeling a little bit more confident that the theoretical tech could be there, but the longer the servers are stable, the more we find out and go down that rabbit hole of how much work really needs to be done for the game to function. So, yeah. Then Friday, they fixed, this is for the 324.2 PTU, they fixed the really dark freight elevators. They're fully lit for me, but the note says it's a work in progress. It's probably because it's not perfect lighting like they are always going for. And then, they did a ton of UI stuff, namely MFDs on MISC ships, which look a lot better, but with dark backgrounds behind them. But on lighter AC maps, they're still unreadable. I will say that I really like the combat stuff. They gave a pip that is now, it's got a drop shadow on it. So literally anything I placed it on, I was able to see it, which was pretty nice. And then, the UI for locking onto ships and all that, I like. I don't know how the pros feel, but as a casual, I think it feels pretty good. Hangars will now stow any ship or ship item on the pad when you spawn another ship to avoid. If you ever had two ships colliding into each other when you spawned a ship, that's to solve this. Hornets got some silly lights fixed that they were like having bloom in front of your face. The RSI Mantis was fixed to have the same HUDs as the rest of the RSI ships, and they did something to apparently set the main monitor settings to be full screen borderless. Didn't really work for me, and I saved the best for last. They everyone in the community lost their minds about the quantum travel fuel prices, and they were like 30,000 for a small ship, at half a tank. But it was a bug. So they said refueling should be instant now as well, and I didn't have that experience, and it was pretty broken for me. So, yeah, but they fixed that issue, and people were freaking out over nothing. Surprise, surprise. Something that we used to have, but now we have again, is you could zoom in on the radar and actually lock onto targets by clicking them. I found it to be pretty useful since the radar was so cluttered in Vandal Swarm. Then Saturday, we had a 4.0 Evo patch, and I actually covered this video on Saturday on this channel, so link will be wherever links go, over here, I think. But yeah, I'll give you the quick rundown. I had 2 goals, contested zones to check those out, their loot and their gameplay, and jump points to see if they were better than the last time I jumped through them. And the contested zones are massive, fully designed levels with height and cover explained just the way they said in their ISC. Most of the visuals were the same, actually. What was not there was NPCs. They were invisible, and people were getting killed by them. You can see their mobi-glass apparently sometimes. I never saw them though. And the loot was like the old Stanton loot. So water bottles, med pens, that crap. And then I found the fire rats area. It rivaled something like the cultists from Tarkov. Very culty vibes there. There were drug labs and some interesting puzzles that I'll let you find out when you play. And jump points far exceeded my expectations on every level. Visually, audio, and the actual gameplay of you moving through the jump point felt nearly perfect outside of it jolting you into the tunnel. Many people failed at that point, apparently. I made it all the way through on my first try. And it was 2.5 minutes long in a Caterpillar. And then the servers became super unstable and testing became impossible at that point. But overall, it was a good test and I actually had a bit of fun. On the flip side, there was a lot missing. No planets, no missions. Some people had missions apparently. And yeah, it was basically like the old test preview for me. Then Sunday, this one upset me because this is when my computer broke and I would have had this ready to go for you. It simply did not go well. It was a 324.2 PTU for some event like Overdrive, and it's like Save Stanton or something like that. I saw 3 missions and they were all broken in one way or another. The cargo missions were impossible because NPCs were teleporting all over the place that I needed to kill, and the cargo had no destination. Distro centers, well, yeah, I had 3 FPS at them, and I didn't even bother with the last one. I don't know why they even pushed this patch, but let's push on to the monthly report. All right, and this monthly report is the Squadron 42 monthly report. In theory, this could be the last meaningless Squadron report, depending on what they say or do at CitizenCon. It could be the last report altogether. Who knows? And all I have to say is this report has very little meaning for Star Citizen players at the moment. We saw AI stuff in terms of improving their performance, but we know not to take that seriously until we see the PU improve its performance. And then we hear about EVA improvements in the animation section again, and we've been talking about that for a while. Will we see the grabby hands push-pull stuff anytime soon? I haven't heard about it, so other than this, right? So it's a little bit weird. And then their dynamic environment destruction was talked about, which I assume is Maelstrom, so maybe that's coming along for us too, but I doubt it as well. It seems very Squadron focused and not very us focused. So with that, let's move on to other updates. All right, we start out with a sneak peek. This could be perhaps an exterior freight elevator. They talked about them being in Pyro, and it's numbered. It looks like it's in space, which shares similar door to what we have in the hangars, and it clearly looks like Pyro as well. And again, that's where they said we would see them. Then we saw the CitizenCon schedule, and we finally know the names and details of the panels now. So let's briefly cover them, as the entire Answer the Call podcast was about it, and I made a react video on it already as well. Brave New Worlds feel very much like last year's engine panel, where they will cover tech things and things that can make systems faster, maybe show a bit of that. Social universe seems something like covering party and org tools potentially, and if it doesn't, I would honestly be pretty disappointed. And then we have Dress to Kill after the cosplay contest, which doesn't sound like it's just clothing. It seems like a continuation of last year's armor panel that never came to be this year. Like, where's my pockets, right? And then Beyond Pyro is going to show more systems, obviously. To what extent, we'll see. And then lastly, the obvious redacted thing is the Squadron stuff. Then day 2 is all me, right? Crafting and base building. I'm so excited. Then the ship panel will focus on the ships that do the crafting and base building. I'm a little less excited about that. And then the 1.0 panel, where they will lay out their plans for Star Citizen 1.0 and hopefully share what the game is to people, since not a single one of you can answer what Star Citizen really is with any foundational facts in terms of what the gameplay will be on launch. I'm excited, but most of the panels interest me, and I just don't want to buy into the CitizenCon hoopla, right? And then for dev posts, you know what I can't stand? People praising CIG for doing something they already should have been doing. They added the Atlas very quickly into the PU for in-game sale. Meanwhile, other ships are still missing from many, many months ago. And then they're telling us this now after they already made like 1.5 million on them. I don't know. It's a good thing, but I doubt they'll do this consistently with other ships. So it just seems like they're trying to get some goodwill before CitizenCon. Then Zach graces us with a chat about how creature AI is improving, and that is why we're moving on to bigger things. Hopefully we'll see larger than the cow next. Lastly, Elliot lets us know that you can heal NPCs if you want to, which I think many people do know actually, but in case you didn't, now you do. And but he also implies that we will have missions that might involve this at some point, so maybe some point in the near future. The buyback token schedule is here, in case you don't know what that is. That is where you can buy back ships that you melted for store credit with store credit. You can't buy back ships without store credit unless you're using one of these tokens. So this is the schedule for you to use them. And then the lore post is the last one, and it's one of those reposts about the Idris. Link is in the description if you're interested. I wasn't, so it'll be there. But with that said, that'll do weekend review for this week. Thank you so much for watching. And if you want to go above and beyond and help me out, pick up some merch down in the description, saltymike.tv. But this was a very, very trying episode, I must say. I've recorded it 3 times now, and I've just run into all sorts of problems because I just threw a whole setup together to try to make this work. So make sure you hit the like button if you actually get to see this video, and subscribe and all that stuff if you're enjoying Weeks in Review, and I will catch you at CitizenCon this weekend.